Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. And today I have my awesome co-host, Tom Campbell. Now, last month we talked about his new book that's coming out. And it is a book. It is an ebook. It's going to be on Kindle. I'm not sure about the pod, just because that's usually a voice thing, but definitely Kindle. And it's really there to inspire us to find our own imagination and our own tools that will help us expand our consciousness. So I thought today, oh, by the way, hi, Tom.
Hi, Laurie.
I thought today we would look at some of the different tools, because what our last one and what from everything I've understood is that it's really going to be about the tools that we use. And part of that tool is obviously our imagination. And of course, tools are just another way to sort of connect in with us to help us move in. I mean, tools aren't really necessary. We just like to have the tool because we can expand on them and learn from them and grow from them. But they're not really the main process. The main process is just to grow up and to let go of our fears. But with tools, we can learn to do that. And if it's all in our imagination, then even the tools we use are in our imagination. And if we like crystals, or tarot or whatever we use in our normal life, we'll probably find access to those within our imagination. But it's also about, what tools maybe inspire you, what tools inspire me. Let's just play with this and talk about the different, because I gather from the book that you're going to give like little examples, or let's expand about that, because I don't know. It's not quite out yet. Yeah. It's coming.
Well, tools are an interesting subject, because if we were more perfect people, if we had no fears and we had no ego and we had no beliefs, if we were nearly perfect people, we wouldn't need tools. Everything would be direct. If you wanted to heal somebody, you just look at them and say, heal, it'd be done. You wouldn't have to go through any process. The processes that you go through is what we're calling the tool. Right. Now, it's good to separate tools, which are things we make up. They're things we use to help us focus our intent. Okay, we want to separate that from the actual active ingredient that's actually doing the healing, which is our intent. It's not the tool that does the healing. So yes, there's all sorts of tools that people use, like in healing, there's Reiki tools, and they have to do with symbols, and certain things have certain meanings, and you can apply them this way and that way, and advanced tools and beginners tools, and there's all the stuff that you can use. And then there's light workers, and they heal by just taking a beam of white light and getting rid of all the dark stuff. And the dark stuff, of course, is a symbol for what's wrong. So you're using your tool to get rid of what's wrong. Now, what that does is focus your intent on healing that individual, on changing the future probability of them being ill to them being healed. Ill being what's wrong, healed being, getting rid of what's wrong. So if we didn't have our fears and our senses of being inadequate and, yada, 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 and all that stuff, we wouldn't need any tools. We wouldn't need any of these devices that help us focus our intent. But we humans have a lot of fear. We have a lot of issues. So we need a lot of tools, and they work for us. You see, the average person, if they just were to say, we'll just look at a person and point your finger at them and say, heal, and that's all, they'd be healed. That person couldn't do that. because that tool is too simple. It's too direct. Something in the back of their mind would say, that's not going to work. That's too simple. I can't just point at somebody and say, heal. That's impossible. So immediately there is disbelief because it runs completely counter to all of the things that we think we know about our reality. You can't make something happen unless you do something. So you have to do something, and just pointing a finger obviously isn't enough. That doesn't do anything. You have to go interact somehow with that person. Otherwise, you can't heal. Well, that's just a belief we have. The belief is that we have to interact to make the change. So
and
if we have
to take courses, and we have to,
yes, we have to learn to take, we have all this stuff, and it depends on how much confidence you have or how little confidence you have. If you have less confidence, then you need more structure in order to get your intent to focus with power, with strength. And as soon as you have some kind of little doubt in the back of your mind, that saps the strength out of your intent. Because part of your intent is saying, I want to do this, and the other part saying, oh, you can't, and it just sucks the energy out of your intent. So we use tools to get around our issues with being consciousness and not being physical. And we have this sense that we are physical beings, and physical beings have to do something in order to change things. You can't just sit, do nothing, and expect things to change. It's just like the people who have NDEs, or they go out of body and they travel through tunnels. There are no tunnels in the larger consciousness system, but traveling through a tunnel is a tool of sorts, a perception tool that lets us have the sense of motion. We're here and we want to go there, and we just doesn't seem right to us just to suddenly be there. We have to move to get there because that's a belief. Has to do with our physical reality. We believe that you can't go from A to B unless you move. As long as you just sit still in A, you'll never get to B. So we need some kind of sense of moving, or we can't go to that light, or can't go to, another place. So we invent a sense of motion, which means we have to have background going by us. We have to change relative to our background. So we see tunnels. We can move through the tunnel toward the light, and the tunnel's kind of stationary, and we're moving through it, and the light gets bigger and bigger as we get to the end of the tunnel. And, we have all those physical things going on that then let us actually do what it is we want to do. Because if we said, no, you don't need a tunnel, you don't need to move, just teleport there. And most people would go, I can't, I don't know how to teleport. Well, that's how you get around in the non-physical. You teleport. You don't have to fly or swim or do anything like that. You just teleport. But when people first get out of body, they fly, because in their mind, they can't go anywhere without, motion, without some justification for getting from here to there. So that's what the tools are. The tools are there to break down our own barriers created by our fear, our beliefs, and our ego, enable us to do things that otherwise we just say, we can't. That's impossible. I don't know how. Oh, but if I can move into that body that's not, has black stuff in it, then I can actually do things to that body. I can put energy on it. I can shine my white beam of light. I can go in with my scalpel and cut out all those dart things and throw them in the trash. I can do all kinds of things. And all of those things are different tools. So, the white light, light workers. Well, there is no light. Light is just a metaphor. It's a metaphor for being able to affect something someplace else. So you can shine your white light on it. If you if you use your hands, and I'll put my hands on the person. And yes, you can feel that. If you do a hands-on healing, you can feel your hands get warm. They feel that warmth. You often will feel a tingle. You can feel energy moving back and forth. All of those things are metaphors. Metaphors can be pictures. They can be words. They can be feelings. They can be warm hands. They can be warm skin on the person being healed. They can be tingles. Metaphors can serve all kinds of purposes. But the purpose is to enable you to have a strong, confident feeling that you are making a difference, that you are connected, that you are actually getting rid of what's wrong there. You are gathering the information you want to gather, whatever it is you're doing. And it's that sense of confidence that enables you to have the strength and the power to actually make changes. Because without that confidence, there's part of you that's pulling the opposite direction. There's part of you that's in denial. Oh, this won't work. This couldn't possibly work. I can't do this. There are people who, instead of using tools in the sense of devices like energy bars and symbols and things like that, sometimes they just use other people. Oh, in healing, this happens. I'm just a little person and I'm not big and strong and I can't heal anybody. But my friend Gabriel, the angel, now, he's very powerful. So when I heal, I don't actually do the healing. I just get my friend Gabriel to come and do the healing, because Gabriel is a powerful being. Maybe an angel or whatever, maybe a guru, but anyway, some real powerful being. And I just point out, so-and-so, my friend here has a problem. Could you help me heal that? And Gabriel's always very nice. And he says, of course. And he heals them, and that works. So that's a good tool for somebody who feels inadequate, that they couldn't do it. If they have a belief that that's beyond me, I'm just a little something and I can't do things like that, but I have powerful friends. So having powerful friends is just another tool to enable them to heal. And yes, they are doing the healing. It is their conscious intent for the healing to take place. And when Gabriel's at work there, they have total confidence. They feel very strongly, yes, absolutely, this will work. And that confidence and that focus is what actually does the healing. That's your focused intent. So tools are a thing that we make up. It's part of our imagination. And we should all create our own tools, because the tool has to be a metaphor that you really resonate with, that really means something to you. If it doesn't, if it's somebody else's metaphor, because it really meant something to them and you try to use it, well, it just may or may not work very well for you. That's why if you go to Google and look at alternative healing, you'll find at least 100, if not 1,000, different modalities of healing. All sorts of things. And they all have fancy names and they're quantum this and that. Something quantum is really a big deal these days. That's a kind of a sexy science word. Makes it sound, makes it sound good. But, they have their own names and things. But basically, all of those different healing modalities are different tools. They've come up with different tool sets to help them focus their intent. There's only one active ingredient, and that's a focused intent. That's it. That's the only thing that's actually going to change anything. That is the active ingredient in healing. But there's lots of ways for people to focus. So all those hundreds of different healing modalities are all about tools, different sets of tools. And different sets of tools work well for some people and not so well for others. In fact, I was teaching a course in France, I believe it was, And I was talking about healing, and I was telling them to make up their own tools. And I said, well, you can, anything that gives you confidence that you're really doing something and it feels right to you internally, that's the important thing, so that you feel confident. And I was saying, well, you can use this energy bar, you can use a blowtorch and burn all the bad stuff away. You can put acid on it. You can cut it out with a scalpel and get rid of it. And I went through all of these things. Your powerful laser can burn it. And there was an elderly lady in the class, and she says, all of those tools are so masculine. She says, I just can't get into any of those tools. I don't have a big laser that'll burn things. It just doesn't feel right to me. And I told her that actually, it's kind of amusing. I said, well, you can get out your vacuum cleaner and just suck all that black stuff away. And she got very irate that I would associate her with a vacuum cleaner. That was not, what do you think? We women, that's one of our things to do. Men can vacuum too. Anyway, she didn't like that. So I told her, I said, well, come up with anything that suits you. And she did. And after the next session, she was very pleased that she really felt confident about her healing, because she created the tool on the spot that the person she was working on was like a rag doll. And she'd open a seam and she'd look inside, and there would be some black, dirty stuff in there along with the white stuffing. And she would just get it out. She'd pull that black stuff out and throw it in a trash can and put some new white stuffing back in and sew the doll back up, and the doll would be good as new. And that worked for her. And she really had then a sense of confidence of what she was doing. So you see, you can make up tools. So the powerful laser that burns away black stuff just wouldn't work for her. And if she tried to use it, it would not be effective. So,
because part of her belief system was that was masculine and I'm feminine, so I need something more feminine.
Yeah, it just didn't feel right to her. It just wasn't her, Burning something away with a laser just didn't resonate with her own sense of who she was. So that's the point. You have to get something that does. So tools are something that you create to help you get by your fears and help you get by your lack of confidence and your tentativeness. And I don't know, am I doing it right? And you have all this stuff that's kind of nagging you. And the tool that really makes you feel like, that's it. Okay, I can connect. That's a good tool for you. So some healing modalities you'll try and they'll fall flat. They just won't work for you. Other ones you'll try and they'll work really, really well. And it's not because the one that works well is right. The ones that don't work well are wrong. They're all just tools. None of them are fundamental. You see, they're all just things we do. Now, there's tools for getting out of body. There's tools for getting data out of databases, for remote viewing. And there's tools for almost everything, because all of it has the similar fundamental thing that matters, and that is your intent. You have to have a strong, focused intent that doesn't waver, that isn't, it isn't at odds with another part of you that's saying that's impossible, or I can't do that, or am I doing it right? Am I not doing it right? I hope I don't hurt the person. If you got all this other stuff going on in your head, then your intent will be very weak. It has to be something that you can emotionally, not just intellectually, but emotionally get connected to. One, if you're healing, for instance, you have to really want to help that person. If you're just going through the motions because, here's the prescription. First you do this, and then you do, here's my tools. Well, that's not going to help you much. It's not really going to enable you to heal. But you have to want and care, want to heal, care about that person. So if you're not a caring person and you don't really care, and it's just a game you're playing, it won't work, and you won't be good at it. You'll be very weak at it. But if you really do care about people, people you don't know, just somebody whose name came up to you that they're having a problem. But you care about people, then you can heal people. And if you can come up with some tools that help you focus that caring. See, that caring isn't just an intellectual component. It's not you care because you think you should, or you think that would be a good thing to do. You have to really care at a deep level. So it's got this emotional, this core being level component. These things work at the intuitive level, not at the intellectual level. So you can have your intellect just really focused on something, and it won't do a whole lot of good. It won't work. You have to be focused at the inside of yourself, not the intellect. Now, that's going to be confusing to people, but it has to be at the being level. It has to be at the intuitive level. It's intuitive caring, not intellectual caring. So it's that intuitive concept, that intuitive intent that is strong. So you're not only, yeah, I'd kind of like to help them. That'd be nice. Sure, I'll help them. See, that's a weak intent, but you really want to, with energy, with power, with feeling. So when you have that intent and you don't have noise, that means you're not thinking about other things. Am I doing it right? Is this a good thing? How's my tool working? I wonder how long this is going to take. If you when am I going to cook for dinner tonight? If you got all this other stuff rattling around in your mind, that will make your intent weak. So your tool has to be something that kind of grabs you, that resonates with you, because when you resonate with that tool, all this extraneous stuff will drop away. If the tool is something like the laser was for that elderly lady, well, then all this other stuff's going through your mind. You're not really focused. Your focus is not tight and strong because it just doesn't suit you. So that's why it's so important to get tools that suit you, your personality, the way you feel right now. Not necessarily the way you're going to feel 10 minutes from now or 10 minutes ago, but the way you are right now. You have to get a tool that fits that. Now, if you have been practicing and have been meditating, that who you are right now can be a pretty steady, constant thing, which makes it a lot easier. If you don't meditate and your mind tends to, jump all over the place, then that whoever you are right now is constantly changing. Every 10, 20 seconds, it's something else, which makes it very hard to do these things because you are not stable. Your intent is not stable. Your focus is not stable. That's why everybody starts with meditation, because meditation is just the fundamental tool that helps you gain stability with your consciousness. So your conscious isn't just flying around doing lots of different things. Thoughts pop in and out of our mind constantly. They just, and we're not even aware of but a very small percentage of them. But lots of thoughts at a, I guess people would say at a beneath the intellect, at the deeper regions of the mind, not just what you're aware of intellectually. At the emotional level, what do we call that? The what's the word for that? Subconscious. Yeah, the subconscious. Things are working. So you got stuff going through your subconscious all the time. Worries, problems, issues, connections, things that are going to happen in the future, things that happened in the past that particularly annoyed you. All of this stuff is just running around in your head constantly. A little bit of it's in your conscious mind, but a whole lot more of it's in your subconscious mind. And you have to get rid of all that to have a clear, focused intent. So that's why many people try to remote view, they try to heal, they do things, and they're just not very good at it. It just doesn't seem to work. Well, they probably skip the first step, which is to discipline their mind, to really get that meditation to where they can stay in that state where they are connected to themselves intuitively, not their intellect. It's not an intellectual thing, but they're connected with their intuitive self and it's clear. It's focused. There's no noise. There's no stray thoughts. That's discipline. You first have to discipline your consciousness. It's just like little children, little children that aren't disciplined, 3-year-olds running around, It's very hard to get them to sit down and do something consistently. Their attention span is about 10 seconds. They can't really focus and get into a particular thing and focus on it very long. They just don't have that capability. And that's because their mental space is not disciplined. And at a very young age, even their physical space is not very disciplined. Even their bodies aren't all that reliable. Yeah. But their mental space is very undisciplined. And it stays undisciplined even as you get older, unless you make an effort to discipline it. And it's meditation that provides that fundamental discipline to get your thoughts so that they're not wandering around. And again, you don't know that they're wandering around. You may think, well, I'm focused on things pretty well. Oh, yeah, and where am I going after this? And what happened then? And yet, when she said that to me, that just still really annoys me. And all that yama that sometimes people call monkey mind is just constantly going on, whether you're intellectually aware of it or not, until you learn to clear your mind. So meditation is an important starting place. Then the second place is to realize that you do have fear and ego and beliefs, and you need to use tools to get around those. It's the way we get around our issues, is with those tools. So that's what tools are all about fundamentally. It's our way of creating a still, focused, and powerful intent. Even though we have ego and we have issues and we have problems and the people have irritated us and we are unsure about our life and things, and even all that's there, we can use these tools to kind of shut that out temporarily and allow us to focus. And then when we're done, we're right back, and the yama goes on again, and that's okay. That's where we live. Don't feel bad about that. We're human, and that's the human condition, is the minds are generally kind of undisciplined and unfocused most of the time. So learning to meditate, learning to focus, coming up with tools that resonate with you, a tool that you can really get into, because when I say get into, that means you drop all the yammering going on in your monkey mind, because you really relate to this particular process. You have confidence in it. So if you're one of these people who can't have confidence in anything other than your intellect, because you're just an intellectual and you live out of your intellect, and if your intellect doesn't approve, then you just can't have the confidence in anything, well, then you're not going to be able to do these things very well. You can still do them on the side, a little bit, because sometimes just naturally you'll drift through one of those great moments where things happen. Everybody does. So even if your mind is very unruly, there will be periods. They may only last for a few seconds. A minute would be really, really long. Mostly they're just a few seconds. But in those few seconds, you can grab information intuitively. You can affect somebody's health. You can get information that Uncle Fred is probably going to die tonight. You get things will come to you just because you can find that still space for a very short time. The discipline is to hold it and keep it for as long as you like. That's what the meditation does. It's natural for people to get it in little spurts and spots and here and there. Of any number of people that will tell you that, they've been out of body 5 or 6 times, but it's all spontaneous. It's never something they control. Well, that's because they just have to wait for one of those times when their mind happens to be at the right spot at the right time, in the right situation, and then bingo, it works. but they lack the discipline to put themselves in that spot whenever they want to be. And there are people also like that with healing. Sometimes they're really, really good and they can do, almost miracles. And other times, it just doesn't work so much. Well, that's because they have to, when they catch that point in time where their mind is quiet for a few seconds, well, now they have some power for a few seconds. And then it's gone again. But it doesn't take long. You don't have to spend a lot of time. Now, if your mind is noisy, then it takes longer because you're adding up all these little bits and pieces of when it's working. But if you have like I say, if we were all perfect, we wouldn't have to use any tools. We just, whatever we thought, whatever we put our mind to, we would put energy to it. We would be able to do those things easily and quickly. And all of that just takes practice. It takes effort. It takes, that's why people who are good at these things have been doing it for a decade or more. Because once they have to discipline their minds, they have to be able to get into a particular state and get rid of everything else. Then they have to have the tools that resonate with them. And those tools change. Anybody that's been in this business knows that the way they worked 10 or 20 years ago isn't the way they work now. They use different tools because the tools that worked for them initially aren't really the best tools for them now that they've gotten through that place. Maybe they've got some discipline now and they don't need that tool that helps them find those quiet spots and stretch them out for a little bit of time. So tools change, and you should never get married to your tools. Your tools should always be tools. And if you feel like, gee, this process is taking a long time, I've got, it takes me 20 minutes, to get to a good meditation state. Well, it doesn't have to take you more than a tenth of a second. The 20 minutes is all your tool working that you're doing. And you just need to find a way to make those tools work more efficiently so they don't take so much time. There are people, rituals are also tools. I know people who, when they meditate, one, it has to be quiet, very quiet. If there's any noise or things going on, that disturbs them. It has to be, sometimes it even has to be dark. They'll wear a mask of some sort. They have to have incense burning. They have to be sitting in a certain position, in a certain chair, in a certain place, where the statue of Buddha is right up in front of them, and they have to have this on and this kind of music playing and on and on and on and on. These things are all just rituals. Rituals that when they do it, it helps them settle their mind and, stop having so much wild stuff going on in their head all the time. Why? Because they've conditioned themselves to respond to those tools. So when they go in that meditation room in front of that statue of Buddha and light this particular kind of incense and play that particular kind of music and turn out all the lights, and, when they do all that, what that tells them is those are familiar things. Yes, every time I do this, it works, and I'm successful at what I'm trying to do. So that's become their habit. And all they have to do is put themselves in that space, and there they are. Their mind's quiet, and they're ready. But you see, the tool is just a habit. It's a ritual they go through. And rituals, be they religious or any other kind of rituals, are just tools to put your mind in the proper space to do what it is that you want to do. That's what rituals are all about. So what you'd like to do eventually is get rid of the rituals because they're very time consuming, and they're very limiting because you have to now be in a special place at a special time and with special things. And so now you've got all these other conditions that have to be met before you can do what you want to do. So rituals are really very inefficient. So you'd like to get rid of those. And then you'd like to take the tools you use and make them as efficient as possible. If the first thing you have to do before you meditate is spend 15 or 20 minutes relaxing your body, okay, relax your feet, relax your legs, relax this, and up until you relax your mind. And, yeah, if you have to do all that first, well, now your meditation is 20 minutes long and you haven't even started yet. That's inefficient. Yeah, and you may fall asleep. Yeah. So it's that you can do better. You can say, well, that's a long tool. I'm not going to do that. But because that's what I'm used to, let me speed that up a bit. Let me make it faster. Okay, I'm going to feet, legs, hips, body, chest, mind, head. I'm there. All right. That was just maybe 5 minutes. I'm going to speed it up. And then after a while, you don't even have to go through the pieces. It'll be a wave that'll just flow through me. Well, that's quick. That's only 10 seconds. And then you can just forget about it altogether. When I close my eyes and I'm there. I'm just going to be there. Well, now it's only tenths of seconds. So you just make things more efficient. And the reason that you can make your tools more efficient is because those tools have helped you build confidence. Even your old tool that took you half an hour helped you get confidence. I can do this. I am effective. I can heal. I can remote view. I can get this data. All right, it takes me a half an hour to start, but I can do it. And just that knowledge that you can do it gives you confidence. And the more confidence you build, the less you need the tools. Because it's not about the tools. It's about the confidence. It's about the mind space, being positive, the I can, I will, about the intuitive part of you being focused and connected. I care. You see? So once you realize that your tools can get faster and easier and more effective because your confidence has grown. Confidence doesn't need all that time to build itself up to where it can finally do what it wants to do. So that's why your tools change as you develop. As you grow, your tools grow with you, and they generally get faster and quicker and less trouble as you go. Now, if you have these rituals, they tend to form habits, and your habits tend to limit you. Your habits don't change. Your habits aren't as easy to change as your other tools are. That's why I kind of am more negative toward rituals than others, because they become habits and they're limiting. Let's say you meditate. Every time you meditate, you do that sitting in a chair in a quiet room. Well, you get good at that. But pretty soon, that ritual of needing to sit in a chair in a quiet room becomes a problem, because now you're at a bus stop waiting for a bus, and there's people around, other people, and they're talking, and there's traffic, and there's noise. But you could meditate. But no, you've got this ritual. You need to sit in a chair, and you need to have it quiet. Oh, that's a problem. You see, now you have limited yourself of what you can do, and where you can do it, and how you can do it. Because if you can't get your ritual, then you can't do it. And you believe that. So that's the truth. You can't do it without your ritual. So rituals are a problem. You need this, you need that. People who learn to meditate sitting in a chair will find it very difficult to meditate any other way. If you lie down on a bed now for the first time and try to meditate, you'll find it's difficult. It just doesn't feel right. You don't feel the same, because all those little bits and pieces that you associate with getting into a good state feel different now. So you'll find it difficult. And you'll say, oh, I just can't meditate lying down. I need to sit up in a chair. Well, no, that's your ritual. What you should do is lie down and try to meditate. All right, it's only half as good or a quarter as good. It takes a lot longer. But keep doing it anyway until you can meditate lying down just as well as you could before. It won't take you long, a week, 2 weeks. struggle with it, and then you'll be able to meditate lying down as well as you did sitting in a chair. Then go back to the chair. Now the chair will feel a little odd. Then you go back to the chair, and then you alternate between the two, and eventually you'll get to the point that it doesn't matter whether you're lying down or in a chair. Well, what you've done is just remove the constraint. Now you can do either one rather than limited just to one way. And then you start working on the quiet part. Learn to meditate where it's not quiet, where you have to let go of a noisy environment and not process it. Well, that's good. You learn to do that, and at first it'll be the same. I can't. It doesn't work. I just can't do it in a noisy environment. It's too distracting. Well, work at it. 3 or 4 months of working at it, and you'll be able to do it in a noisy environment. Well, good. Now that bus stop would be no problem at all. You can meditate for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because it only takes you a half a second to get into the state, and you're there, and you can have a part of you watching for the bus in case it's early and still be meditating. You can split and parallel process. That's another thing you can practice. So you see, the point is, once you develop it, there's all kinds of ways that you can make it more efficient, more effective for you. And that's the idea, and that's where we're going. And everybody uses tools because everybody needs them, because we're not perfect enough to not need them. But we need them less and less, and the tools get more and more efficient as we grow and as we take the effort to make our tools more efficient. Because if you say, well, I can't meditate anywhere except in a chair, so you just always have to meditate in a chair, then you're limited. And some people are like that. They just never try to outgrow their tools. But outgrowing your tool takes work. Takes effort to do that. It's not something, that's just trivial. It'll take you weeks. And to meditate, to have a real good meditation in a noisy place, that may take you months. That may take you a year. It just depends on you. But you can learn to do it, to learn to split your consciousness. So there's one part of your consciousness doing one thing and another part of your consciousness doing something else. That's not that hard, but it will take you a year probably to get good at that, or 2 or 3 years to get good at that, to where part of you can be very relaxed and calm and at peace, and the other part of you can be having a discussion that's very intense. So you can be both. Just because you're having an intense discussion doesn't have to mean that you let go of your peace and you're quiet. And then you'll find that you actually think a lot better, that your intuition is more connected. And in that intense discussion, you can pull down all sorts of information that's just really handy. That's part of that discussion because you're calm and peaceful. Part of you is able to still make those connections, even though you're in an intense conversation. So it's just what we call growing up. It's just learning to, manage, learn to get to know your consciousness and what it can do and how it functions. And tools are a very important part of it. Now, in my Tom's Part tool set, I have lots of tools there. And I lead you in that I call it a virtual imaginality game. Imaginality being imagination and reality. When you play that game, I lead you to places and into situations where you need to create tools, or you'll be kind of stymied, with the process, won't work real well for you. So it challenges you to make tools. And I use the imagination as a tool because your imagination is a very powerful tool. And we in the, this physical reality, we're materialists here in this physical reality. We tend to think of the imagination as something that's fake, not real. Oh, it's just your imagination. We discount it, which is really unfortunate because imagination is a very powerful tool. And imagination can help you focus, can help you gain that confidence, can do a whole lot of things for you that are really very helpful in the intuitive realm. The imagination, if you can disconnect that imagination from your intellect, basically puts you into a very good altered state. Now, if you start with your intellect, okay, I'm going to imagine a day at the beach. All right, there I am. I'm at the beach, and I hear the surf rolling in. You can close your eyes and feel it. I hear the surf, the boom, and the surf coming up and down. I hear the birds squawking. I feel the sand, and you reach out with your hand, and I get my fingers in the grit and the sand. I feel the warmth of the sun, and you have all these beach sensations. You can smell the salt air, Actually, you can even taste the salt air, and you feel the warmth, you feel the sand, you hear the sounds. And if you start with your imagination and then get into that get into that imaginative story. Maybe you're walking along the beach, or not just lying there getting a suntan. When you get to the point where the story that you're imagining begins to take on a life of its own, right? Now, you're basically out of body. You've just progressed, you've just transitioned from an imagination to an out of body, okay? But you're still at the beach. But you see, your intellect is saying, okay, there's sand, and I'm walking, and there's people, and there's a lady in a red bathing suit, and there's there's a bird, and your intellect's making it up. But get into it means emotionally. You have to become it. You have to be there. You have to engage all your senses. You have to feel it in your feet. You have to smell it. And when you get into it with all of your senses, pretty soon you'll get to a point that it's not your intellect creating things anymore, but one thing just happens after another. It just unravels. Your experience begins to unravel without you really doing anything. It just naturally unravels, rolls out in front of you. Well, now you're basically out of body. You are no longer you're no longer attached to your sense data. All of your sense data is consumed in this thing. So you've let go of the physical reality. Your intellect is no longer running the show. It's just the daydream is kind of running on its own. And you could say that's a lucid dream. That's an out of body. Well, those things are very much similar things. It's one of those things. Now, here you are in your mind in another reality where there's a beach, and you're having an experience. You're seeing things. You're meeting people. You're perhaps having conversations. You're finding seashells. You're doing things. And what's the difference between that and a dream, or between that, should say in a lucid dream, because you are lucid. You're perfectly lucid. What's the difference between that and a lucid dream or an out of body? Well, not much at all. Very, very little. So from that beach, and when you're in that state, you could say, well, now I'm going to go see what's on the backside of the moon. There you are. You teleport. There you are. And now you're looking at it. And there's the backside of the moon. And you can go do other things. You can remote view. So it basically is a pathway to set yourself free that starts with your imagination and works into something totally different. The imagination starts with your intellect, but doesn't necessarily stay there. And I would think that almost everybody has daydreamed to the point that that's happened. A daydream where you just kind of get lost in that daydream, and somebody maybe bumps you later, and you go, oh, okay, I was just gathering wool there. I was in a daydream, but your intellect really wasn't running that daydream anymore. It was just taking place on its own, unraveling as it does, just like your night dreams do. In a night dream, the situation just unravels on its own. You're not planning it. And daydreams work that way too. So that's a way, using your imagination can actually put you into a lucid dream, out-of-body space, wherein you can do other things. And it's all part of this transition. So in the park, I have lots of things that kind of set up this situation. And I have lots of things to feel, to smell, to taste, to touch, all the senses, to see, to hear. There's lots of sound, so it's a very rich environment in which there's sensory data for all five senses going on all the time. So it's easy to get wrapped up in it. It's easy to kind of lose yourself in it, in this environment. And I kind of lead you to different things. If you want to be working on yourself, say healing yourself, getting rid of the tension, getting rid of all the junk you carry around, well, there's a special place just to do that. If you want to connect and get information, well, there's 3 or 4, 5 different places to do that. If you want to remote view, if you want to go out of body, if you want to just get information, if you just need help with something, well, there's a situation sets up that leads you into that. So there's lots and lots of different things that you can do, things that you can experience, things that you can use. Some of it towards your health, some of it toward others' health, some of it's just exploring. But there's all these different facets there. And every one of those facets, I probably have 3 or 4 different ways to approach it that you can approach from kind of the story inside Tom's Park. So that's what it amounts to. So you go in there with your imagination. You let your imagination shift from your intellectual side to your intuitive side, and then you go have experiences. And these experiences are unbounded. They're not bounded like your physical experiences are. They're pretty much unbounded. And in that process, you can discover lots of things like who you are, yourself, what your next step should be. Should you take this job or that job? Even practical things like that you can explore. What about relationships? Why are my relationships having problems and struggling? There's lots of things about your world and your reality and your life that you can discover in these spaces when you get your intellect and ego to sit down and be quiet, and you can actually work with yourself in an intuitive space that doesn't have all that baggage along with it. You can learn a lot. So that's one of the things that, the Tom's Park does. It can just be fun. You can just go there, like walk on the beach, have a vacation. You could just have fun. And the point is, you need to just get involved in activities and have fun, because that is what leads you to let go of your intellect and get into it intuitively rather than just intellectually. So you get engaged in an activity. You can go snorkeling and scuba diving and jet skiing and hiking, and there's this horseback riding. There's all kinds of activities there that you can do. And all of these physical-like activities are meant to help you get to the point where you can drop the intellect and just let the story unravel as it does. You see, so they're things that engage all your senses. And the more your senses you engage, the easier it is to let go. If you only engage your sight, I'm only seeing things. Well, that's a very, sterile situation. And it's harder to let go of that. Your intellect will just hang on to that. Or if it's only sight and hearing. But if you engage everything, that kind of is more overwhelming your processing. And that lets the intellect kind of slide, because the intellect isn't necessary. It isn't needed. So that's kind of what Tom's Park is. So there's a lot of things to do there. There's a lot of people there to interact with. There's not only just you and the environment, but there's a lot of people who work there. It's a lot of staff. And you will get to know these staff members, and you will have relationships with these staff members, and you will keep seeing and connecting with the same staff members time after time after time. You will build confidence and build friendships and connections. And all of that is growing. Every experience that you have is an opportunity to grow. You make choices when you experience. Experience requires choice. Choice is how we grow up. So this gives you now a more well-defined, less wild and crazy set of choices that you have, different than your everyday life, where the choices in your everyday life are very much changed by the choices that other people make. Here, the choices are mostly what you're creating. So it's a little more buttoned down, a little more supportive, a little more whatever than it is in the physical world. So there's a lot of things, a lot of times when you need that support, when you need that kind of calmness, and you can find it there. So one of the dangers is that people will go into the park and find it so much more interesting and fun and likable and nicer people that they don't want to come back here to live. They just rather go stay, 4 or 5 hours a day at the park. Well, that would be a danger. And I tell people, don't do that. Don't spend more than, say, an hour a day, at Tom's Park, because you don't want to drop this reality, this physical reality that at least we call it physical, because this is where your strong learning is. This is where you have to deal. Okay. But the park can be a help. The park can be a coach. The park can be something that helps you understand and make sense out of the life that you have here. So use it as a tool to help you grow, to help you be effective here, not as an escape to get away from here into a kinder, gentler space. It is a kinder, gentler space, but it's not an escape. And I try to make that real clear in it, that's not what it's for. And if you use it for that, you'll end up just hurting yourself. That won't be effective. So it's a tool to help you with life, to help you learn, to help you grow. And all the choices you make there are just like choices you make anywhere in any reality. They help you evolve. But it's a kinder, gentler, more fun space to be in, to help you sometimes get your bearings, solve problems, figure things out. And then you come back to this reality and try to take what you've learned with you. So that's the idea of Tom's Park and how it works. And there's lots of tools there, but you're encouraged to also be creative in Tom's Park. If there's a feature that's not there that you would like, make it, create it there. And now your Tom's Park will always have that feature in it. You're not stuck just with what I've put in it. You can put your own things in it.
That's great.
So that's the idea.
No, it's a great idea. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for it to come out. So hopefully it will be before Christmas, right?
I'm trying real hard to get it out before Christmas. Yes. I wish there was some magical way to speed the process up, but like we said earlier, it's all volunteer process. And when you have volunteer process, you just have to wait till people have time to give you, because they have jobs, they have lives, they have children, they have families, they have other things to do. And sometimes you're only going to get 5 or 6 hours of their time on a weekend. So that's only 5 or 6 hours per week you're getting on their time, which is a lot different than somebody who's being paid and you've got, 8 hours a day. So it's just a little slow, but we'll get there. And I like working with volunteers. It's nicer that way.
It is. All right. Well, great show. You have been listening to News for the Heart. We've been getting the heart of what matters with Tom Campbell, Tom's Park, and all the tools that we use and our intention to use them to evolve our consciousness. All right. Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.